Videos you're about to see are a collection of videos that I've already done. Now, I've put these into categories. So in other words, out of the, at the moment, 900 odd videos I've done, I cover many different subjects from spirits, Bigfoots, aliens, ancient aliens, etc. So the video you're about to watch is a collection of just one subject. In other words, Anunnaki, pyramids, Egypt, whatever it is that you're just about to watch. Now, you can watch them all on YouTube free of charge, no problem at all. They're in sets of 5, as you see here, or they're actually in sets of 50, so you can actually watch them in one whole go, right from video number 1. But you can also go to my website and find the links and podcasts, etc. there. And the website address is ourtruehistory.co.uk, and you can again find the videos straight through there. And there's some special ones there which are also on YouTube. But if you're after something that's not on YouTube or on my website, I do have a Patreon page called Our True History, and it's at the moment it's got 76 other videos. Now, some of these are actually proper documentaries that I make. So there's a documentary called Everything You Need to Know About Spirits. There's a documentary called Everything You Need to Know About Mermaids. The spirit one is 3 hours long, fully edited properly, etc. So if you are interested in more of my kind of projects or what do I call them, videos, feel free to go to my Patreon page. And also ones that are not categorized on YouTube, even though they're free on YouTube, but the ones that are not categorized, if you click here, you'll see category videos on my Patreon page, and it's got other ones, so it just calls part videos. So basically it's the same as what you're watching now, but may not be on YouTube. I've put the category ones on Patreon, but again, you can watch them all in order on YouTube or my website free of charge. But Patreon, unfortunately, you have to pay. But that's why I sit and make very long documentaries about everything you need to know, etc. So hopefully I'll see you there. Anyway, enough of me waffling. Enjoy this whatever it is you're watching, because I'm using the same intro for all the videos. Thank you. So if we go along from the last video where I said the water turns into a sort of a round object. So Earth, we believe, has a molten core. We really only believe that because of the magnetic poles. But there's a theory out there that says actually our centre is a block of ice, and rocks would stick to that over billions of years. Now NASA's done an experiment, and that does actually happen with ice. The little rocks would attach itself to it. Now, at one point in our past, our Earth was a greater mass, but the size of the Earth wasn't any bigger than the mass itself. But if it was an ice core and the ice steamed up and overheated or heated up, it would break up continents, as we now know happened. And that would explain the size difference from then to now and why we still have water. So the little greys were around after the Homo sapiens were created, and I think that's because the creatures before the Cro-Magnons and Neanderthals, etc., I don't believe they had the pineal gland, but I think after we were created, we did, and that's what the souls enter, and that's what brought the greys and their masters. And I'll talk about greys later on. There's a whole different story with them, but there's proof that their kind of craft were around throughout the centuries, right up till now, obviously. So these old paintings have, as you can see, UFOs in the backgrounds. Even craft that's got people inside them. There's a really good one there with a light beam come down. Obviously, when I get to Jesus, I'll explain about lights and how they lift people up and cattle mutilations, etc. But there's another one there that's actually having an effect on this bird. So they've been around for... This is really scary because it's actually happening right now. But in the 80s, I came across a person that was abducted by aliens. And the aliens turned around to that person and said that planet Earth should really only have 500 million people on it. And back then I didn't know anything about the Georgia Guidestones, and these are the Georgia Guidestones, and they've got a lot of text on them. And one of the texts says maintain humanity under 500,000
million.
Now, these stones were written in 1979 by a mysterious person called R.C. Christian, but he used a pseudonym. But one of the, well, there's a few other things on there. But look at this, number 3, unite humanity with a new living language. Now, if you remember, I was in one of my other videos, I was talking about aliens teaching someone a new language using their symbols, etc. And you can actually read a whole book within a few seconds. So I'm wondering whether or not this is all from aliens and this is what their plan is. So the American personnel, I'm talking about Americans because I know more about them than the Nazis, are kind of treated like slaves, and the Council of Aliens don't like that. So the way the Americans get around this is they clone their body, the service person's body, to be 20 years younger. So when they finish their tour of the moon or wherever they're working, they get their soul or spirit or whatever you want to call it goes from the older body into the younger body, and then they're time traveled back 20 years. Make of that as you will, but that's and apparently they don't then get the benefits of the pay, so the only thing they've got is the knowledge. So there's some whistleblowers out there that say that, but I must just quickly say that I've now added a drive time chat to YouTube. They're about 20 odd minutes and they cover one whole subject per time. So this one's about ghosts. So do subscribe. Leonardo da Vinci kept a diary, but for 2 years after he entered a cave, the diary was empty. Now, speculation leads people to believe that he was a contactee with aliens and they showed him a lot of things, possibly even stuff from the future. Now, that sounds quite incredible, really, but when you look at what the guy's done, and I don't know if you really look into what he's done, not only does he draw things that have got hidden messages apparently inside them, so he was trying back then to give the messages, but he also does anatomy. He also, wait for it, created helicopters and aeroplanes and alright, he didn't actually make them, but he designed them based on things that he may have seen. Now, the question is, was he shown any of this, and was he given help by aliens? While I'm talking about famous people that have seen UFOs, possibly such as Da Vinci, William Shakespeare possibly saw a UFO. He wrote about some sort of light in the sky, but he also may know about souls, so he may have been abducted and learned about spirits. The only reason why I say that is because when you read his passage that says, all the world is a stage, we are but players coming and going. I'm paraphrasing, don't shoot me for that. But, if you look at it from the soul point of view, the whole world is a stage, which it pretty much is for the spirits, and we're just players coming and going. So did he see an alien? Well, some people actually even say that he is an alien, but that's down to interpretation. But I think he probably did. The Council of Aliens I've mentioned before is made up of very different aliens that allow you as a soul or as a light spirit to join, before you're born. They're totally different from the Council of Nine, and the Council of Nine has Atum as one of the main deities. Now, these deities, through mediums and clairvoyants, have said that they've been with us since the start of time. Now, that time probably means the time from when humans were created, not from previous. Now, I'm talking here about Earth being seeded. Now, these guys wouldn't have done that. It was a race that we call the Ancients. Now, the reason why I believe that we was seeded is because there's these 3 billion year old objects that have been found around different places. Now, I think that they probably had DNA or bacteria or something to help start life on Earth. Now, there's people say, or eyewitnesses and whistleblowers, should I say, have said that other aliens have the same DNA as us. In fact, even Bigfoot does. So then you start thinking, well, okay, did they all make us? No. The ancients had this particular type of DNA. Now, we're calling it human DNA, but obviously it's not human DNA. Let's just call it ancient DNA. So the ancients went round seeding planets And the reason why we can say that is because when we look at this, just this is a little fruit fly, and it has human DNA. Now, if you imagine then that the whistleblowers that say all the other aliens have the same DNA as us, then it makes sense that one particular race that probably started life before anyone else went round seeding the planets. And if that's the case, then you've got a race of beings that's older than any life that existed on any other planet. Now, the source or creation, which is what the aliens call God, now whether or not it's sentient, I don't know. Whether or not it just manifests things, I'm on the side of manifesting things. But apparently the source or creation had told the ancients, which were the first race ever on the universe, to go and seed. So they were guided by the source or creation to create life throughout the universe. So when someone says, Bigfoot's DNA matches, it's got humans' DNA in it, therefore it's not real, think again, because even a little fly has. I'll talk about Albert Einstein a bit more down the line, but just hold this in your thoughts. So he was about 25, 26 when he became famous, and even more so later in life. But during that period, while he was around that age, he worked at a patent office. Now, a patent office is a place where, so for example, if I come up with an anti-gravity concept, I would submit it to the patent office, and they would approve it, and that means no one else can now copy that. That's mine, and I can now create that product. Obviously, they can reject it and say, no, someone else has already come up with that, or it's too similar to another one. So what I'm saying is maybe Einstein wasn't as smart as we all think he was. He would be getting lots of different people ideas, and patents. So it wouldn't have just been my anti-gravity. Someone else could have sent him that. So I think he may have used other people's ideas. Area 51 and aliens go together like tea and biscuits. Well, in the UK they probably do. Area 51 is a place in Nevada in the United States. Originally formed in 1955, but was classified as not existing. So it was the old joke, everyone knew of Area 51, but apparently it didn't ever exist, but of course it did. It wasn't until about 2013 that it became declassified, and when they declassified it, they said that it was just using the area for testing new military vehicles, etc. However, we know different, don't we, everybody? Just quickly, I must say a shout out to this watch repair company. It's called Good Timing. So it's actually called goodtiming.uk. Very reputable. It's a UK thing. So if you've got a half decent watch that you need repaired, or even a decent watch, but not obviously cheap £5 watch, but if you've got a watch that needs repairing, I would highly recommend these guys. They give you a quote as well. They will not rip you off, and you will get your watch back in a great place. I can vouch for them. Goodtiming.uk. Okay, back to Area 51. So apparently planes that was landing in Area 51 were all blacked out. No windows, so whoever's in them as a passenger couldn't see anything where they're going or whatever. And apparently the pilots had to play a certain song. I think it was this particular song by John Denver, before they landed, which was quite interesting to hear. Now, in Area 51 or around Area 51, there's microphones under the ground. You cannot get into Area 51 without them even knowing. In fact, to be honest, you can't even get near Area 51, even though they say that the people up on the mountains will see you at the checkpoint here or the gate. They know way before that, so don't think that you. So these are the people that was trying to storm Area 51. I think, if you remember, there was that storming business. So Area 51 is mostly underground. Once you get to it, if you was able to even get to it. Now, underground is where all the magic happens, and I'm not talking card tricks. Now there's different levels. I think there was 7 levels the last time I heard about it, and I'll cover those levels in another video. Anyone remember this guy, Uri Geller? Now, what you may not know is his story starts when he was about 5 or 6. He was coming home from school in Israel, I believe he lived, and he was followed by this orb. This orb eventually caught up with him and knocked him over. After that, he had these abilities, so much so that the American CIA, I think it was, actually employed him for a various period of time, a few years. Now they wouldn't have done that if he didn't actually have some sort of skills. Now he attributes these skills to that orb that gave him, and he also talks about the fact that we can all consciously create something together, which is why he does these tricks. Well, I say tricks, how he can fix people's watches through the television, which I'll cover on another episode about manifestations, etc. So Uri Geller is actually a real psychic of sorts. Let me tell you a story about a portal, and then next video I'll explain what I think portals are. So there was this woman and her two young children went to the back of the estate in America, and it leads onto a forest, and they're out picking berries, etc. And one of the younger kids, about 5 years old, he was probably about 20 foot away from his parent, and he went missing just like that, bang, vanished. She called out police, dogs, everything else. Obviously, the kid was never found. 5 years later, the kid knocked at her back door. I'm guessing he was 5 years older. And she asked him, you know, was a surprise. She asked him where he was. He said, "Mummy, I could see you, but you couldn't see me." So he was obviously. Then she asked him, "How did you survive?" And he was with the little people, he said. So I will explain what that means in the next video. A portal can take you from one place to another, but I'm talking here about the vowel of a different, you can call it a different universe, call it whatever you want, but it's like the same page but 2 different sides. You can't see the other side because you're on one side, and that is happening right now. There is, right beside you is, you're out of phase, you can't see it, but things are happening beside you. It's kind of like ghosts. I'll cover that in a sec, but first I have to mention this is Black Ops, sponsored by Black Ops, Aliens, Bigfoot and Our Untold History. Excellent book. I've got a copy of it. It's available on Amazon and Kindle. I'll put a description in the link. So it's like ghosts. So ghosts, again, they're out of phase. We can't see them because they're on a slightly different frequency to us. And the same goes for this vowel. Now, certain times and certain conditions can allow someone to slip through that vowel. When I talk about the word vowel, I'm on about a thin layer between our reality and his reality. Yes, leprechauns are real. And let me tell you a quick story. A 7-year-old boy was fishing with his parents somewhere in America, I believe, and he came across the boy separated from his parents, only a short distance away, but he came across a little leprechaun smoking a pipe sitting by this river, and the leprechaun suddenly looked round and dropped his pipe and literally disappeared. The little boy picked up the pipe, obviously told his parents that he saw sort of a 1-foot little creature. Anyway, the parents didn't believe him, and the little boy took the pipe home, put it in his drawer. The next morning, the pipe had gone. This is a real skeleton, actually genuine skeleton, and it is tiny little skeleton. Now, if you think it's been debunked, because you may have seen this before, let me just explain why they say it's debunked. Because it has some, not all, some human DNA. So then they say, well, there you go. Even though it's exhibits unusual appearance and everything else, it has human DNA, so therefore it's debunked. But anyone that's watched any of my other videos realizes that just because it's got human DNA, which literally everything has, bananas, fruit fly, rats, all got human DNA, and so is this little creature. So I'm saying this little creature, although I don't think it's an alien, I think it's from the other side, as I was talking about in the last video. the upside down, if you watch Stranger Things, whatever you want to call it, the Val of just basically the other side of what we can't see. So there's loads of these little creatures all over our history. So here's just some of the names here: dwarves, gnomes, pixies, leprechauns, even Smurfs is another name that's used in another country. The list goes on there. Look at that. That's a huge amount. So that's a huge amount of names for people just to make up rubbish, to lies, to just, you know, tell their children. Back in the day, people actually saw these creatures, and I'll explain why we don't see them so much now later on. But first, I just have to say this video is sponsored by an excellent website called thegiftkingdom.co.uk, and they take your head, you just send a photograph in, and they animate the head, put it on this body, and actually create a video. It's fantastic. This one's a princess video, so I'm just showing a clip of it here.
Oh no! The dragon is right in front of her. The horse sees the dragon and comes running to scoop up the girl. Faster and faster they run away from the dragon. But the dragon is also fast.
So I'm just going to run a tad on there. As you see, it's
years, even before you were born.
She meets all sorts of characters. She even meets a fairy, in fact, speaking of. She plays guitar.
The fairy can't stay around for very long and has told the girl that different fairies will...
So I won't bore you, but it's absolutely fantastic. Brilliant present for your child or someone that you know. And it's called The Gift Kingdom. They do other things, pirate ones and whatever else. Thegiftkingdom.co.uk. Okay, so going back to these small creatures now. Here's another creature that was, I think it was Mexico. Yeah, Mexico. And the guy found it running in his barn and he threw acid over it. And then it became... like it is here. Now, again, people say it's debunked because he swore on his life that it was real, and then a long time later he had to admit that it was fake. But so this little creature was captured, this is the one I was just talking about in the last video, was captured by a trap that was set inside the guy's barn. And as you see there, its fingers got caught, and obviously it was screaming and shouting and everything else, and it couldn't get away. So the guy threw this acid over it, and of course it died. And then it got taken for experiments, etc. Now, a lot of the experiments came back and said, well, as you know, yeah, it's got some human DNA in it, but it's even got a towel, which was a bit weird. They couldn't understand what type of creature it was. Now, the guy eventually turned, the owner of it eventually turned around and said, yeah, no, I faked it. Now, I totally believe he was either pressured into it or was bribed into it, because he was absolutely adamant that this was a real thing. So I believe it was real. Is this a fairy? Now, this was captured by a guy that allegedly said it was a real fairy that he found at the end of sort of a mound of dirt somewhere. But the reason why it is fake is because the guy actually turned around the next day and said he deliberately done it, and he explained why he done it. He said he'd done this to see whether people still believe in fairies and pixies. So yeah, this one's a fake one. He was also a magician and an artist, so this gives credibility to it, whereas the last video I did where it was just a farmer, there's no benefit in him creating that little creature. Now there's also the old stories of this girl here, 16 years old, and she drew fairies and took pictures of them and sent them into papers, and the whole world believed they were real, but really they were just pictures that she drew. So yes, some things are fake, unfortunately. US Navy films these triangular ships, well, UFOs. Now, I'm showing this as the fact that it's done using night vision cameras. Now, these objects, to the naked eye, you could not see them. So I'm still talking about portals and other dimensions. So this is the visible light range that we can see with our eyes. Obviously, that UFO is using some sort of technology that we can't see within our visible range. Now, red is the lowest we can see, and then it goes into infrared, which is here. Microwaves, these are all still light, even though you're thinking, you know, this ain't right, it's not light, how can that be light? It's all to do with light and frequencies. So the Val that I was talking about in the other videos, the other the other side, the upside down, whatever you want to call it, is to do with light, and I'll explain that in the next video. To get to the upside down, the other side, the next val of our, I'm going to have to find a proper name to call this, but if you've watched the other videos you'll understand what I'm talking about. So to get there, it's not a portal, it's because a portal will take you from one place to another. It's just another universe or another dimension that's here, but we can't see it. We're out of phase to it, and the way to actually cross over is using light, as I mentioned in the last video, light frequencies that can actually open and close the dimension. Now let me just tell you a quick story, true story. A group of people were on an expedition to a tribe, I think New Guinea or somewhere like that, and they were going through a forest. The tribesman that was the interpreter said to the tourist type people, "Is anyone wearing anything yellow? Because if you are, you will go missing." You may have heard of the Philadelphia experiment. Well, this is actually a real thing that actually happened. I'm just going to explain the beginning process of it. So how it all started was these welders, arc welders, that was welding parts of ships together, not the actual Eldridge itself, but they were welding ships in a dockyard or in a shipyard, and their light on their welder machine was so bright that it actually caused the opening of the other dimension, the val, whatever you want to call it. So some of their tools, spanners and hammers and whatever else, within that light radius would disappear. So after many times this happening, they worked out that it was to do with the light. So they contact, even though they were an army personnel, they actually contacted the army anyway. The army came in to do experiments, and they did many experiments and found this to be true, which is where it leads on to the USS Eldridge. I will come back to the USS Eldridge and the Philadelphia experiment when I get more into the time travel side of things, but hopefully you can sort of start understanding that light frequencies can open or can allow one to travel to the alternate dimension, whatever you want to call it, that's right here that we just can't physically get to. There are places around the world that has a natural ability to actually open these doorways, rifts, whatever you want to call them, into this other reality that's right here, but we can't see it. One such place is Skinwalker Ranch. If you watch my other videos, you'll see what I'm talking about. So this has the ability to open because of the properties surrounding it, the energy that's within the earth there, and the energy that's actually above because of the shape of the area. It allows these rifts or doors to open to allow creatures to come through. Interdimensional, that's what I'm now going to call the val, or the upside down that I was talking about in the other videos. Interdimensional. Now this is the video I hope you lot turn around and say, wow, Our True History has made it so clear and understandable, because if you've watched them all from part one, this is where it starts making a lot more sense. So the first nuclear explosion, which was tested in New Mexico, remember that word, New Mexico. Now you'll remember from the other videos that the amount of UFO activity around New Mexico, you've got the Roswell crash, you've got the bases, you've got so many other cases of UFOs flying around there, and that is because the nuclear explosion that was first tested there opened a rift, an interdimensional rift. So it's allowed creatures, beings from the other dimension to come through. Yes, the nuke also killed light beings or destroyed. So to open an interdimensional doorway, you could, if you wanted to, use a nuclear explosion, as what's happened in the past, which has allowed these creatures, etc., to come through. Now, it's all to do with the frequencies. Now, if you look at what a nuclear explosion actually causes, it gives off X-rays, gamma rays, alpha, beta, basically a whole spectrum of light frequencies, and one of those, or a couple of those, I'm not quite sure, I'm not an expert on this, but they open up and allow the other dimensional to come through. Just to give you a bit of an example on that, so I don't know how you are on quantum physics. I'm not an expert, but I'm learning. So basically, watch this video here and then I'll explain a bit more.
Several polarized sunglasses, or some other form of polarizing filters, and start by holding two of them between you and some light source. If you rotate them to be 90 degrees off from each other, the light source is blacked out completely, or at least with perfect filters it would be, because all of the photons passing through that first one are polarized vertically. So they actually have a 0% chance of passing a filter oriented horizontally.
So what I'm using this as an example is to show that our current understanding of light, obviously it gets stopped because we can only see so much, but obviously if that light frequency from the explosion matches that one there, then it can come through. I hope that makes sense to you guys. I just have to throw this out there. I know I've mentioned this book a few times already. Absolutely fantastic book. The author has sent me a new book that he's literally just about finished, and by the time you watch this video it should be on Amazon and Kindle. He sent me a not for resale version. He asked me to review it after I've read all of it, but I'm about halfway through it. It's absolutely fantastic. Just to give you an idea of what it's about, everything well, so far a lot of the stuff that we've already talked about he's wrote in here. It's a fiction book, but he's added everything that you can think. Well, not everything, but so far he's added a lot of stuff that we've already covered. So very clever, and it's basically about a guy that right at the beginning, someone's falling from the sky. This guy that lives in a house hears a bang outside, goes outside, sees someone on the floor, and that person looks just like him, and then that person tells him to go on a journey with him. And obviously, is it a clone? I don't know yet. I'm only halfway through. Is it I don't know what it is, but so many factors that's we've already covered. It's fantastic. So look it up. Epic Journey it's called. A skinwalker creature as described by the Navajo Indians. Now apparently these skinwalkers can change shape, but the question is, where do they come from? Now I'm suggesting they're interdimensional, and the reason for that is because they literally just disappear and appear without warning. There's no sort of UFO above them. So the skinwalker is described as a harmful type of witch. Now get out of your head the sort of witch with a pointy nose. A witch could be anything, who has the ability to turn and possess and disguise themselves. Now other types of creatures that are interdimensional are trolls, pixies, squares, hydras, flower monsters, goblins, just to name a few. So these creatures are on the other side, which is why I was talking about small little people before. The Hadron Collider, which is by the group CERN, and basically it's a tube that goes round miles and miles and miles, I think in Switzerland, and you put, or they put microscopic atoms, and they fire it round this and hope that one goes one way and the other goes the other way and smashes into each other to create some sort of effect. Now, what kind of effect are they after? And where did they get the idea that they could actually do this? Well, if you look here, this is still on their website, CERN's own website. Extra dimensional gravitons and tiny black holes. Yes, they are trying to create extra, or trying to bring through the extra dimension that we've been talking about. So if CERN know that it's possible, then it's possible that everything that I've been talking about is actually real. Okay, this is where I hope to debunk the debunkers. So look at this picture here. Now this is a long exposure photograph. So anyone that knows about photographs know that you have to stay there for a long time to see something happen. So let me just show you this video here. These are rods.
Thousands of bizarre images captured all over the world. Mysterious creatures that live between blinks of the eye.
What are they? That's the tough question.
Some think they are visitors from another dimension.
These things that appear to be phasing in.
Okay, so let's go back to the debunking part. So those rods are quite far away from the camera, as you can probably tell on the video, and the video is not done over long exposure, it's done live. Now if I know filming, so if a creature is close to the camera, then yes, it would produce some sort of streak where it's blurry because it's out of focus, but if it's at a distance, then it's going to be more in focus, unless it's going absolutely at the speed of light or it's interdimensional. I'm just going to slightly go off on a tangent here, so pausing the interdimensional for a moment, I'm just going to say thank you so much for everyone that's followed me and are enjoying these videos, and the feedback is fantastic. It warms my heart to read that you're all enjoying them and you're not falling asleep to my voice too much. Now, when I first started doing these, I've always thought that school should teach things in a chronological order, because while I was at school they went from Tudor to Henry VIII to Battle of Hastings, and I had no comprehension where they were in relation to each other. And I've always, said that they should teach, from A to B, and then go back over it so people understand. So I think they should teach kids at school, early on dinosaurs and whatever else, and then move on up, but in a chronological order, so a kid can say, aha, Battle of Hastings was before the Tudor times, and I didn't even know what Tudor times was. They were bantering this word around at school, Tudor. I was like, okay, well, when's that? And that's why I was probably in special needs, because I needed to see it in a logical order, not just throw numbers at me and expect me to understand it. So when I started these videos here, I thought, right, I'm going to do it as it should be laid out, I think, as to help people understand it a little bit more. I was tempted to just go down the route of getting loads of followers and sticking up videos, just using other people's videos and putting them up. But I thought, no, I won't do that. I'll do something different and try it my way. And so far, it looks like everyone's enjoying it. So I'm just going to show you this video here. This is from a program. This is why I'm doing it my way. This is from Ancient Aliens. Now, they found, people have found a hidden cave underneath here, which is in one of the Aztec cities' pyramids.
On the continent.
So I'm just going to play it. And basically, they set this robot down, and it finds gold. Sorry, I'm just trying to get there. They find these gold or clay things with gold flecks on them.
Inside they are clay.
So on the inside they're clay, apparently, and on the outside gold flecks. Now, if you've watched my other videos, I've even said about another pyramid that had mercury underneath it to extract the ore, or to extract the gold from the ore. And wait for it, the walls were adorned with the gold flecks, so it was the Anunnaki trying to look. This is a computer simulation, but the Anunnaki would dig in there. Now, watch what Ancient Aliens say it is. A ritual.
Suggest that someone was.
They say it's a ritual place, which is absolutely crazy. Please forgive me. I kind of just need to give a little bit more time out to the sponsors of some of the videos. You've probably seen me rush by their products, which is a shame because I feel really bad for it. So I'm just going to give a little bit more time. And you might find some of this interesting because I'll try and make it a little bit more enjoyable. So this book here, I'd actually already had a copy of it, and then the author saw my videos and said thank you for mentioning it. Now, if you look at the front there, quite clever design. So on the front there is a Sumerian cuneiform tablet writing going down, and on the back is Egyptian hieroglyphs. Now, did you know that there are over 2,000 different Egyptian hieroglyphs? There you go. So that's something you've learned. But this book is absolutely fantastic. Christ knows how long it took him to do all of this information. Look, I mean, even talks about how it's just amazing. So if you haven't already seen this, that talks about blood groups and everything, please grab yourself a copy. It's available on Amazon, and you can get it on the Kindle, or you can get the paper book back version. And the same author has recently finished another book, so I have to mention that. It's actually really good. I've now finished it. It's called Epic Journey, and I think they've changed the cover, or he's changed the cover since. But let me just tell you a quickly bit about it. So basically, the tagline there is, what would you do if someone fell into your life and looked just like you? Now, the story is a guy, and someone literally falls into his life that looks just like him, tells him to go on this journey. So I'll give you one little example. So our main hero is called Peter. Obviously, this guy comes into Peter's house. Peter runs to go get his phone and a gun from the kitchen, comes back, but the guy that looks just like him knows that his battery's dead and knows his gun is plastic, even though it looks like a real gun. How does he know all this? Absolutely fantastic. So it's a mystery, but it's also got a lot of elements that space stuff, and I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's a lot of the stuff because it's the same writer that done the other book. So that's fantastic. Do get that Epic Journey. So I have to talk about Fridge Door Alarm, because I did actually buy one of these prior to the person contacting me, and trust me, it saved me some times where the fridge door was left open. So it's a fantastic product, and it gives you alarm. You choose the settings. I have it at 60 seconds, then it starts beeping. So that saves your food. And then Gift Kingdom, thegiftkingdom.co.uk. Does all sorts of things, comic books, actual real comic books that you can actually send to someone, proper printed and everything. Comic books, all sorts of stuff. The Gift King. Great Scott, Marty, let's talk about time travel. And I know so many of you are desperate to get to this particular part. So time travel, let's connect that with the spirits that I've talked about. So there's a guy called Randy Kramer. Now he's not the only one, there's a few others, and apparently he's worked for the Earth Defense System. So this might actually go over a couple of videos, so bear with me. So he apparently, prior to being born, he had, as a fetus, he was injected and manipulated and probably even put in his mum's womb by the military. And apparently, some of the DNA that they was mixing with his were alien DNA in order to make him a better soldier. So that when he grew up, they would sort of railroad him into the military, so that he ended up in the Earth Defense Force. Is time travel possible? Well, Randy Kramer, who worked apparently for the Earth Defense Force, says it is, and he was part of the Naval Space Command, which is a real thing actually. Apparently it's new, but we know it's not new. Now this is actually, I believe, the same setup that Gary McKinnon found when he was hacking computers. He actually found the names of these craft, etc. And one of them is Highliner, which is that craft there. It's a mile-long spacecraft. So if you're adding everything together now, where all my videos, you start seeing there's a pattern here. So the Naval Space Command is in charge of that. Now, once they've finished with you on your tour of duty, now in this case, the guy, Randy Kramer, says he did about 17 years there on Mars. The Philadelphia experiment with time travel. Now, of course, it's anyone that's in that industry or the elites will claim it's a hoax, and they basically said it was a made-up story. But you can tell that to the people who died. Yes, people actually died on the ship, and you can tell that to their family members who no longer see them. You can also tell that to, wait for it, Einstein and Tesla were actually involved in this experiment. Now they didn't stay for very long. They did come along to the actual place where it was moored, and helped out with some of the electronic type things. So I'll cover what actually happened in the next video, but it's a fascinating story. And if you are interested in this story, look for a guy called Al Bielek. He talks about whether or not you believe him. He talks about being one of the people on. So the Philadelphia experiment was originally designed to phase the ship. Do you remember I was talking about interdimensional? To phase the ship so that the enemy wouldn't be able to see it. Unfortunately, the day that actually they did the first experiment, what happened was a lot of the sailors ended up being fused inside the actual hull of the ship. Some of them sort of halfway through the floor, like this guy here, his legs were dangling. Obviously they died. So it's quite horrific. Now I'm just going from memory. Now I think the actual ship travelled to another place in Florida actually for a couple of minutes and then came back, and that's where Al Bielek's story comes into it. Now I think there was a bit of time travel as well. I think that it arrived a couple of minutes earlier in Florida than when it left. So I'll tell you the next bit. So Al Bielek's story while he was on the Philadelphia ship, or the Philadelphia Experiment, the Eldridge, while they was going through a mist, fog, whatever you want to call it, opened up underneath the ship while people were being phased through. Now he jumped off, apparently, I think from memory, sorry, it's been a long time since I've researched this one, him and his brother jumped off the ship and into this sort of weird stuff that's underneath the ship. He ended up time travelling to the future. Where he eventually had to find the military to be able to send him back. Now it's been a long time since I've heard his story. But he managed to get back to the time that he left, and then obviously as time went on, back to now, he then started to tell his story. So it's definitely worth looking up his. I think he's passed now, but he's done. There was radio interviews and all sorts of things. Very compelling. 300, we made it 300 videos. Thank you, everybody. I know I keep saying thank you, but without you I would just be talking to myself. But let's go back to time travel. So let's start on the basics on how time travel is possible. So I'm trying to do this as basic as I can. So Einstein had come up with the equation that E equals mc squared, which you may have heard of, which basically means E equals the energy, mass, and c the speed of light. So that determines the mass of where you are. So in other words, the gravitation so for example, if you're on Earth, you'll have a certain mass, but if you was on another planet that's like 10 times the size, then that would have a different mass. Whereas if you're in space, it wouldn't have mass. Then you've got the energy that's inputted into it, and then the speed of light. So the best way to describe all of this for you is the ISS, which is the International Space Station, and Earth has an atomic clock. These are absolutely synchronized right down to milliseconds. So these don't go out. These will always be aligned with each other. However, astronauts on their longest trip round, I can't remember the name of the guy, but one of the astronauts that stayed on there with the atomic clock noticed that he had his atomic clock was 0.000 something slower than what the Earth's atomic clock should be. So in other words, because he's further away from Earth, he lived literally a slower life, even though it was only tiny fraction. But the further away he got or would get from Earth, the longer he would live. So this adds 100% credence to the Anunnaki coming here with their different planet size and the fact that they're away from the sun a lot longer than we are, and the speed that they go around adds that they could literally have lived on Earth for thousands and thousands of years, relative, that's the word, relative to what we would be on Earth. So time is relative. Now Stephen Hawking's done a book called A Brief History of Time, which I've read. There was a few errors that I noticed in there. You're probably going to say, how can I be smarter than Stephen Hawking's? Well, his are theories, and it's not my fault I've come up and found some discrepancies in his theories. But if you want to give that a good read, you can, but it doesn't still say how to actually create time travel. So let's move on to CERN, which is that Large Hadron Collider that we all know about, which I've mentioned earlier. Now these guys apparently are trying to create time travel. Now whistleblowers have said they've actually done it and even had dinosaurs come through. I hope you're enjoying this video so far. I have actually put the remaining videos of this category that you're watching on my Patreon page. I'm sorry to do that, but again, they are free already on YouTube. You just have to watch them in order to find the ones you want. But whatever it is that you're watching at the moment, the remaining, well, the whole video is on my Patreon page, so feel free to go there and watch the remaining, however long, it could be another hour's worth of footage, videos, etc. So I'm just trying to do it because having a website costs, and I have to pay every month for the server space. So I thought I'd do, so I hope you know where I'm going with this. So hopefully you like it. If you do, go over to my Patreon page and watch loads more videos, loads more content, as well as the remaining however long, and it's it's going to be long. I wouldn't do it for just 1 minute. So there's loads more to watch on my Patreon page. Anyway, thank you so much for watching these videos. And as I say, they're all free on YouTube, but you just kind of need to watch them in an order if you do want to watch them in a category. Thanks. Bye.